Hello ladies and gentlemen, once again thank you for joining us with today's webinar, and today I'm joined with a couple of special guests, and we're going to be talking about fraud and auditing, specifically in relation to some investigations, tools, and certainly we're going to be touching on some real world case examples that we've that the guys are going to be talking about with us. So first of all, we're joined by Wade Davies. Wade Davies has 21 years specialist experience, in particular focusing on fraud risk management, fraud investigations, project delivery, revenue recovery, and a whole list of core competencies, with a number of supporting qualifications in that particular field, having graduated from one of the police bureaus in Australia. His professional experience is involved in Olympics, Qantas Airways, Ernst & Young, DHL, Express Asia Pacific, and again a whole list of things which you should be able to see up on your screens now relative to his bio. Also joining us, we've got Mick Gerondis, who's got 29 years criminal investigation experience, again specifically in fraud investigations, heading up one of the Sydney, Australia fraud units, focusing on investigations in around the Sydney metropolitan area. His responsibilities as an investigation manager with the National Police Fraud Squad, with the rank of Detective Inspector, and commercially he's been working in the field for quite some time and conducted quite a lot of activities around Asia, Canada, Europe, and Australasia as well, and the UK also. So first of all, welcome gentlemen.
Great, thanks Tony.
Thank you.
Now, as we promised, it's going to deviate significantly from some of the webinars and the more technical discussions that we've heard or experienced ourselves. We're going to get straight into the practical aspects, because many of those who have joined us today are dealing with the realities of what to do or issues associated with fraud and internal deceits. So, first of all, Mick, I'll throw the question over to you. How do we start this process? What are some of the first things we do? And talk us through the methodology and talk about some of the pitfalls and experience tips that you can share with us.
Sure. That's the biggest problem for most companies, is where do you start? And a lot of companies think, well, we don't have any visible signs of any fraud problems, so therefore we're okay. Now that's the biggest mistake you can make. You don't have any fraud issues because you don't look for them. And a lot of security people or auditors, because it's not their specific function, don't actually know where to look or how to start. Most of the time, fraud's discovered by accident, and then it's too late. And as Wade knows, I always like to say, it's what we try to do is put a fence at the top of the cliff instead of an ambulance at the bottom. So to get started, you've got to know, firstly, there's different ways that we'd come in and have a look at your business, and we'd look at it from a some people refer to as a fraud gap analysis. We come in and have a look how you run your business, how your procedures are set, how they're followed, and then we'll have a look if there's any gaps in the procedures. If we can find them, then so can everyone else find them. And then what we often experience is, once we've discovered a few gaps in your processes and procedures, we have a look if anyone else has discovered them, and then we inevitably find that there's fraud alive and well in the organisation. Sometimes that fraud can cost a lot of money, as one of the experience that I had last year. It cost the company $46 million by the time they figured it out, and they figured it out by accident as well, where had they gone in and done the gap analysis and used the fraud assessment tool, there was red flags all over the place that should have led them to stop this fraud before it ended up costing them $46 million. Wade, you're a little bit more familiar with the assessment tool from the start. You might share that with us.
Yeah, thanks, Mick. Look, basically, the fraud assessment tool has been developed so any person who has the responsibility or the role within an organisation can actually conduct a number of tests and analysis in the business to understand if there is actually fraud or there is actually gaps the business processes that may lead to fraud or revenue leakage. So I suppose what we've done is compile together a number of processes and tests which cover across the broad stream of a business, whether it be in logistics or finance, and then train up a particular person to be able to go to an organisation, or whether they're in that organisation, and use that particular tool as a starting point to identify where the gaps are. So that, I suppose, is what the tool is about. Is about the particular person being able to come in and identify where, if there are gaps in the business. If they are, then they can actually go and action to stop this becoming a fraud, or if it is a fraud, to action it ASAP.
Now, Wade and Mick, you're talking about this tool. This particular tool, this is not something you began your commercial career with. This is something that, through frustration, years of experience, a number of ways to standardise and cut straight to the chase, this tool has been developed on experience. It's not a tool for the sake of creating a tool. It's just not an Excel spreadsheet with a couple of bullet points. Just talk us about specifically the tool that you're referring to.
Yeah, basically, Tony, the tool is broken down into a number of sections, as the slides will indicate, and in each particular section, it will target the particular part of the business, whether it be the employment of the person in finance, understanding the pre-employment of that particular person, if there's been any screening with regards to their past employment, credit history, all these particular issues. We then rate that based on ISO 31000, so it has a risk rating matrix set behind the actual tool. So at the end of that, we can then quantify where the overall posture of the business with respect to fraud and exposure. But it then will walk through each area of the business, and business dependent, whether it be something in manufacturing, or whether it be solely procurement style business, or whether it be a logistics business. It's tailored to overlay the processes and procedures required to test the business effectively and from an operational perspective. And it's not just a tick and flick. It will actually require the person to go in and ensure that each part or question that they go through is done correctly, and they test what is required to understand if it is working correctly or not.
So, speaking to Mick's earlier point, in terms of prevention is better than the cure, not only is this tool that you're talking about something that retrospectively we can come in to identify and focus specifically on the breaches, violations and vulnerabilities, and ultimately recover some of the issues, but it also gives us a bit of a governing principles that helps us develop in advance what companies should be doing. So hopefully they're never actually at the point of trying to recover $46 million. They've followed this protocol and implemented it throughout their organisation as a capture mechanism. Is that right?
Yeah, very much so, Tony. And look, we've developed it because in a lot of instances, to come in and do a fully fledged fraud review of an organisation can be very expensive. And I suppose what we've seen, this particular tool allows any security manager or any risk manager or maybe an operations manager to undergo the course. That way it's cost effective. They can then implement it into their business and identify the critical areas that are occurring, and then actually work with their business to mitigate those particular risks. So it becomes, one, it's cost effective, and two, we then can reach into the other areas of the business and, I suppose, transfer that knowledge to ensure that fraud is actually mitigated.
Okay. All right. So it's not just about turning up sort of with the tools afterwards. It's also at both ends of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Excellent. Now,
give you a little example. Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say, give us an example.
If you had your normal tick and flick fraud assessment that some accounting firm might come up with, they'll say network and systems passwords have to be changed all the time, and you're not supposed to give anyone your password to the system. Right, everyone knows that. So you tick that off, yes, everyone has their password. If you go into it a little bit further and you check to see whether this is actually happening in practice or not, what you'll find in many organisations is the manager or someone, an associate of one of the employees will say, "Oh, you're going on holidays for a week. It's hardly worth giving up your password and having to reset it when you come back from holidays. Just give me your password and I'll write it down here. When you come back, then we'll keep your password active rather than you having to apply for a new one." That happens all the time, all over the place, and often you'll find people write their passwords on their computer, on a little post-it note on their computer, or it's in a pad in their desk. That is an excellent way for someone to get on the system and to appear to have a separation of duties when it's really only the one person controlling 2 or 3 different accesses. Also, the financial delegation is very easy. Everyone's supposed to have their financial delegation set to a limit, and that limit's supposed to be reviewed. So you tick that off in your little audit that they've got that there. But what happens is, in exceptional circumstances, a manager will say, "Look, I'm going away for a week. I'll give you this amount of financial delegation," and then when he comes back, he forgets, and then that stays there. And this allows for opportunities. And once you allow for an opportunity, someone will exploit that opportunity, and then you have the problem. We prefer to talk in terms of revenue dilution, revenue diversion, and revenue control rather than fraud, because fraud is more a reactive term. Once you've got fraud, you've got it, and you've got a problem. If you're losing revenue because it's being diverted elsewhere, or it's being diluted because essentially someone's taking it, we're in the process that we can we can go in there, we can stop that, we can recover from it, we can implement measures so it doesn't happen again, but they have to be fluid, they have to keep going and keep changing, because when one opportunity is stemmed, another one will arise. So this is a constant process. You know, it's much better, as we said before, the proactive measures, the tool comes in to tell you where to start, to point you in the right direction, and then every so often, every quarter or 6 monthly, you go in and you do a health check and you go over it again to see